It's time to get ready for Saints versus Seahawks. I want you to help me prove who is the better fan base, the Who Dat Nation or the 12s. We're in a sub battle this week with Will Ortner and Seahawks today. Let's bury those frauds. Let's show who the better fan base is. Subscribe to Saints Now by Chat Sports if you bleed black and gold. My name is Trizzy Trace Girouard. This is Saints Now by Chat Sports, and I have a hot take. I think that the New Orleans Saints of 2025 are very reminiscent to the 2021 Detroit Lions, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes explaining my case. Dan Campbell, Saints legend, he obviously turned one dumpster fire organization into, fast forward, pretty successful team. Number one overall seed in the playoffs last year for the NFC. They started off in 2021, in Dan Campbell's tenure, with a very poor record, 3-13-1. But what's interesting is they lost 6 games by one possession. So very quickly, you could have had a 9-win team if you win some of those. Those games, you tied with the Steelers in Week 10, the Detroit Lions. They tied with the Steelers in Week 10. They got their first win in Week 13 against the Vikings in December. They beat the Cardinals in Week 15, and then they beat the Packers in the final week of the season. So for the Detroit Lions, this was a squad that after trading Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff, they used a bunch of those picks to try to rebuild their roster, and they showed fight. They showed that they were a scrappy team. They showed that they were not going to bend over and just take it. They were not going to lose. They were not going to just get beat up, bullied, and be the laughingstock of the National Football League anymore. The Detroit Lions, you could tell that the tides were starting to turn for that organization. Now, let's take a look at the New Orleans Saints in 2025. They started 0-2. Both losses so far have been by one possession. The New Orleans Saints, in my opinion, they're showing fight. They're showing grit. They're showing that they believe in themselves and that they believe in what's being built here. But the team just hasn't been disciplined enough. They haven't played a clean brand of football, and they've been struggling with controlling the controllables. They have too many penalties. They have issues on getting off the field on third down. They have issues converting on third down offensively. And I can tell you right now that the New Orleans Saints, in my opinion, are headed in the right direction. Because traditionally what we've seen this team do whenever they get down and out and they get hit in the mouth is they keel over. And then they just lose. And then they get blown out and a horrible collapse comes and you end up losing by 20, 30 points. Maybe not all the time 20, 30 points, but still. When you get hit in the face and you deal with adversity, the New Orleans Saints traditionally have just keeled over. But now they're standing up and fighting. They're giving themselves an opportunity to win. They're not winning, but they're at least giving themselves the opportunity to try. And so I'm going to take a look at some stats here momentarily, comparing the offenses for New Orleans in 2025 to Detroit in 2021 and the defenses by that same token. Granted, it's only been 2 weeks, but I think that the numbers are super, super interesting, and it just proves my case that I think that this team is reminiscent of the 2021 Lions. But first, got to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. This episode of Saints Now by Chat Sports brought to you by the #1 daily fantasy sports app in the whole wide world, and that is none other than Prize Picks. You and I, ladies and gentlemen, we make a decision every single day. We make multiple decisions on what are you wearing, what are you eating. But you know what's cool about Prize Picks? Your decisions can actually get you paid. It's the only place where being right can help you turn ball knowledge into cold, hard cash. Don't miss on any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it is always good to be right. Today, I am going to be rolling with Monday Night Football. Actually, Lopez, can we go to the other one? Because this is for the Monday Night Football Week 2. I have a different Prize Picks that I want to take a look at for NFL Week 3. This is the one I want to go to. Because we've been talking about Saints versus Seahawks here. So for this matchup, Chris Olave, find the end zone once. Lopez, we're projecting this one into existence. We're making this one. It has to happen at this point. Week 3, come on. It's going to happen. Jackson Smith and Jigba, also find the end zone once. If these two guys find the end zone, your boy's making some serious cheddar because these are both demon picks, and that means the payout is much, much higher. Prize Picks, they're one of the few apps out there that puts their users first, so withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. They offer Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account. PrizePicks also offers injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks will not count it as a loss. You just pick 2 to 6 players and choose more or less on their stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Shout out to PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. All of that information is in the comments and description of this video. Let's continue this conversation around the New Orleans Saints and building something for the future. The theme that I want you guys to pick up on, if you haven't already, is it took a minute for the Detroit Lions to turn things around. But look at them now. They had a 3-win season, 13 losses, and a tie. And then after that, some more wins. Then after that, some more. And then after that, you have the number 1 seed in the playoffs. And I'm not saying that's exactly where the New Orleans Saints are heading. I am saying I'm not saying that is where they're headed. I'm saying that's where they could be headed. Try saying that 10 times fast. All right, let's take a look at the offensive comparison here, because these stats are super, super interesting if you ask me. So granted, this is through week 2 of 2025 compared to the entire season of 2021. Very small sample size in 2025. But again, I still believe that the New Orleans Saints are headed in the right direction. Reminder, this is the Lions that won 3 games, lost 13, and tied 1. So the New Orleans Saints have been doing a lot better in the yards per game. They haven't been putting up as many points. They haven't been putting as many yards per play. But they have been struggling a little bit more on third down. They've been better in the red zone. So with the New Orleans Saints offense versus the Lions offense in 2025 to 2021, you can tell that there were changes being made. The offense was going to get better. They were getting the pieces in, and they utilized a lot of those draft picks to build around Jared Goff and build around the vision that Dan Campbell had. And that's why I go back to this point that I think the New Orleans Saints are headed in the right direction. Kellen Moore has to build this team the way he sees it needs to be built. It needs to be his squad. Not trying to recreate Sean Payton's teams, not trying to recreate another roster. It's trying to be your own successful self. It is a copycat league, yes, but you also need to have your own identity, and you have to have your own culture, and you have to have your own personality and your own thumbprint on the roster and on the team and on the game plan and on what the expectation is if you are a part of the team. And I do think that the New Orleans Saints have done a good job this offseason of rebuilding things, but since the season kind of started picking up, they've been making a bunch of trades, been thinking about the future. I think that that's really, really interesting because that's kind of the same mindset that the Lions were in just a few years ago. And I will say, a big reason for the success in Detroit, obviously, it's Jared Goff. He's a great quarterback. He's playing really, really well for Detroit. That being said, I also think that Spencer Rattler is off to a pretty impressive start. You're going to see people in the comments section. You're going to see people on social media just absolutely ripping Spencer Rattler for being 0-8. 0-8. He's 0-8. All that just to be 0-8. Look, the reality is wins are not a quarterback stat. Wins and losses are a team stat. That's a team stat. It's not up to one person whether or not they lose games or win games. Spencer Rattler this season has not been the reason that they've lost those games. Spencer Rattler has needed to play better, but he's done a fine job. He has the 18th highest QBR in the National Football League, 57.7. That's a number ahead of guys like Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson, C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, Aaron Rodgers, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, Tua, Bryce Young, J.J. McCarthy, just to name a few. So guys who, in Burrow, Stroud, Lawrence, Rodgers, Nix, Daniels, guys who are viewed as quality quarterbacks. Wilson, a dude who just threw, the Giants had like 600 yards of total offense in week 2. It was like, he had like 450 yards. It was ridiculous. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Spencer Rattler's been perfect, but I do think that he has gotten better. I think that his start to this season has been better. I think that when you take into consideration his situation last year and his situation this year and the tape versus last year and the tape versus this year, you can definitely see drastic improvements for the young passer. What do you think about Rattler so far? I want you to sound off in the comment section. Share your thoughts on the quarterback for New Orleans. Do you think that he's been fine? Do you think that Tyler Shough needs a chance? I want you to sound off in the comment section and have an honest conversation. Look, I go back to the offense here because I don't think that it's Spencer Rattler's fault that the Saints are losing games. And you can chalk it up to I'm making excuses for Rattler. You can chalk it up to whatever you want to justify you saying and believing what you think in your head. I'm going to do the exact same thing because that's what we do on this channel. That's what we do in this great country. We have conversations and we form opinions on those. The offense needs to be better. The offensive line needs to execute their assignments better. And to be honest, I thought the offensive line did a great job yesterday in limiting Nick Bosa up until the very, very end of the game. The offensive play calling could be better. The drop issues need to be addressed. The decision-making can be better. I think that the offense as a whole just needs better execution. I don't think that any of the people on the roster are solely to blame. You can't point the finger at one person on the offense. You can't point at the quarterback, can't point at the receiver, can't point at the tight end, can't point at the line, can't point at the whoever. It's the offense as a whole. The unit needs to be better. And I will say, for a squad that's been deemed the worst in football and a team that's been, oh, looky here, we're going to be picking first overall. It's going to be March for Arch and Nussbus and blah, 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 blah. Offense has been pretty good. Reminder, the offense in 2025 is 21st in yards per game, 27th in points per game, 27th in yards per play, 23rd in third down percentage, and 17th in red zone scoring percentage. Lopez, were any of those dead last in the league? I know it's not, lovely numbers. I didn't hear any in the 30s either. So my point being, the offense has been impressive. The offense has been good considering where the bar was set. Sure, there has been growing pains. We knew there were going to be growing pains. If you didn't think there were going to be growing pains, wake up. I don't know what to tell you. There were always going to be growing pains. This team is in the midst of a rebuild. But the squad has been better than expected. And if you want to disagree with me, you're entitled to that opinion, but you can look at the numbers, you can look at the stats, and everything that I just told you backs that up. Now, the defensive comparison from Detroit in 2021 to New Orleans in 2025. You can see the Saints defense does better in yards, allowing yards per game, points per game, yards per play, third down percentage, right next to each other, red zone percentage, right next to each other. And the tail of the tape you see on the right side of your screen with all those Saints numbers, top half in yards per game, right around top half in points per game, top 10 in yards per play. You want to know why we keep saying self-inflicted wounds are the problem? It's because you give up 50% of your third down opportunities. You'll start from third and behind the sticks and give up a big play. Doesn't matter. This team is allergic to stopping third downs. It's so damn frustrating. This trend that I've noticed with this team has been that the Saints on first and second down, they'll be great. They'll be solid. That's proof in the pudding by 4.8 yards per play. That's top 10 in the National Football League. Third down, though, is our kryptonite. Third down scares the hell out of me. Third down, the more important down, where you need to be making plays, is where you're making mistakes. Unacceptable. To be totally honest, I think that New Orleans, if they want to take the trajectory and want to follow the path that Dan Campbell's Lions team did, you're going to need to find ways to play more complementary football. This team is way too one-sided right now. Because when the offense goes and makes a play, the defense doesn't make a stop. When the offense drives downfield, special teams can't put it through for a field goal. When the defense gets a stop, the offense can't drive down the field and give you an opportunity to score. When one of those things is working, the other two just go straight to shit. The Saints need to play more complementary football. And it's going to take some time. It's going to take a few years. What should the timeline expected be? I'm not going to say what you should expect, but this is what you should shoot for. So the Lions under Dan Campbell, first season, reminder, 3-13-1. In 2022, they went 9-8, had a winning record. They were second in the division. In 2023, they were first in their division with a 12-5 record. That is his third year as the Lions head coach. In his fourth year, they were the first overall seed in the NFC playoffs with a 15-2 record. Best one in the National Football League. And in 2025, they are at 1-1 right now. So obviously, you have work to do. Obviously, it's not going to be pretty in year one. But what has been my theme every single video since Kellen Moore's been hired? It's not about this year. It's about this year and this year and this year. It's about getting to sustained success. It's about going through the growing pains. It's about dealing with the adversity. It's about learning the roster and building the foundation to achieve sustained success. The New Orleans Saints, in my opinion, they are a much more well-coached team this year than they were last year. You just got to give this thing some time. Give this thing the opportunity to cook in the oven. Give this team the chance to prove themselves. We always knew in year one you weren't going to go win a Super Bowl. We knew we weren't going to make the playoffs. We knew we weren't going to have a winning record. Year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. That's when you can really see the success get built. But it's important in year one to challenge yourselves and tackle the challenges that are put in front of you so that way you can alleviate any issues and get to that sustained level of success. There's still plenty of work to be done. I don't want it to get twisted. I don't want my words to get misconstrued or misunderstood. This team has a lot of work to do. They are not anywhere near being a playoff caliber roster. That being said, if you stop those self-inflicted wounds, if you start controlling the controllables, and if you build the roster and keep it healthy, I think that this isn't the worst team you've ever seen in football. I still believe in Kellen Moore. I think that he has what it takes to be the guy. I really respect and I'm on board with his vision. And it feels like this team keeps getting those moral victories. Moral victories only take you so far, but they are important. And those moral victories are what can help you get to real victories later on in the season. Again, I'm not saying we should celebrate and be hip, hip, hooray because we have a bunch of moral victories throughout the season and you win 1 or 2 games. But I am saying is if you notice the team play very close, fight hard, and show up every week and not keel over whenever they get hit in the face, I think you can tell that this team is going to be headed in the right direction. I've said it before. I'll say it again. This New Orleans Saints squad is very reminiscent of the Detroit Lions in 2021. My name is Trizzy Trace Girouard. This has been Saints Now by Chat Sports. As always, be sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications, and help us beat Seahawks today in that sub battle. We will see you guys later. Y'all stay golden.